The street of shame. Velia walked slowly through the cold, dirty streets. Her feet were bare, and every step hurt. Her skin was violet, and her eyes were silver, something no one in this city had seen before. Because of that, they called her names. "Monster," some whispered. Others shouted it loudly. No one asked her name. No one wanted to know her story. They only saw her as something strange, something wrong. She was hungry. Her hands shook from weakness. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Every time she tried to beg, people pushed her away. They threw garbage at her. One man kicked her and told her to disappear. Velia didn't cry. She had no tears left. She only lowered her head and moved on. That morning she had tried to find food in a trash bin behind a shop. The owner saw her. He yelled and hit her with a metal stick. People nearby didn't help her. They laughed. Some pulled out their phones to record her. She ran away, her arms covering her head. By afternoon, she collapsed near the town center. Her knees hit the ground hard, and her thin body curled into a ball. She was too tired to move. A group of boys noticed her and walked closer. One of them shouted, "Look, it's the street monster again." The others laughed and picked up rocks. They started throwing them. One rock hit her shoulder. Another cut her cheek. She didn't move. She just stayed there, shaking. More people came to watch. Some smiled. Others didn't care. One woman even said, "She deserves it." The crowd grew louder. One man shouted, "Finish her! These creatures don't belong here." And then the crowd became silent. A tall man stepped out from the side. He was human. His name was Leo. He wore old clothes and carried a small bag over his shoulder. He didn't look rich, he didn't look strong. But his eyes, they were sharp, angry, focused. He walked straight into the circle. No one stopped him. He stood between Velia and the crowd. His voice was calm but cold. "Enough," he said. "She's not a monster. You are." The crowd was confused. Then someone shouted, "She's not even your kind. Why protect her?" Leo didn't answer. He knelt beside Velia and gently touched her arm. She flinched, expecting pain. But his touch was soft. She looked up, her eyes full of fear. She saw something new in his face. Not pity, not fear. Just kindness. Leo helped her sit up. He took a cloth from his bag and wiped the blood from her face. "You're safe now," he said quietly. Someone from the crowd threw another rock, but Leo caught it. He stood up and glared at them. "I know every one of your faces," he said. "If she's harmed again, I'll make sure the law hears about it." The crowd didn't like that, but they stepped back. Some cursed, others walked away. Soon, the street was empty. Velia sat on the ground shaking. She didn't understand what had just happened. No one had ever helped her before. She looked at Leo again. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why did you stop them?" Leo sat beside her. "Because I've been beaten too," he said. "I know what it's like to be hated for no reason." Velia's lips trembled. She looked down. "I don't even know who I am anymore. They say I'm cursed." Leo shook his head. "You're not cursed. You're just alone, but you're not alone now." She wanted to believe him. But after everything, it was hard. She looked around, expecting someone to return. But the street stayed quiet. Leo stood and offered his hand. Velia hesitated. Then slowly she placed her hand in his. It was small and cold, but he didn't let go. He helped her up and said, "Let's get you out of here." And for the first time in years, Velia took a step forward, without fear. She didn't know this man. She didn't know where they were going. But she knew one thing. He was the first person who didn't look at her like a monster, and that changed everything. A hand in the dust. Velia had never touched a warm hand before. Not like his, not like Leo's. His hand was rough, but steady. She looked at it again as they walked. How he didn't pull away, didn't flinch even though her skin was not like his. For the first time in her life, someone held her as if she was not strange, not dangerous, not something to be feared, just a person, just a girl who had suffered too much for too long. They walked through narrow alleys until they reached a small broken building near the edge of the city. It wasn't much. The walls were cracked. The roof leaked. But inside, it was quiet. Safe. Leo led her to a small mat and gave her water. He handed her a piece of bread and didn't say anything while she ate. Velia chewed slowly. Her hands shook. Every bite felt like a gift. "Why did you help me?" she asked again after she finished eating. Leo didn't answer right away. He lit a small light and sat near her. "I've seen too many people walk away from someone crying for help. I used to be one of them, until one day someone helped me. That's when I changed." Velia looked at the floor. Her voice was soft. "They say I bring bad luck, that I have a sickness." Leo looked at her with calm eyes. "Maybe you do. But that doesn't mean you deserve pain. We all carry something inside us. Yours just looks different on the outside." Velia stayed quiet. No one had ever spoken to her like that. She touched her arm where bruises still showed. She remembered all, the times she was kicked, cursed, thrown into the dirt. It was always the same, everywhere she went. No one listened, no one looked, but Leo was looking now. That night, she slept on a soft mat for the first time in years. Leo didn't lock the door. He didn't watch her sleep. He simply went to the other corner, closed his eyes, and let her rest. She couldn't sleep at first. She kept her eyes open for a long time, waiting for something bad to happen. But nothing did. The next morning, she woke up to the smell of warm broth. Her body still ached, but her chest felt a little lighter. Leo gave her the bowl and she ate quietly. After a while, he pointed to some tools on the floor. "I fix machines for food," he said. "People don't pay much, but it's enough. Want to help?" Velia didn't know how to fix things, but she nodded. She wanted to try. She didn't want to go back outside. Not yet. Leo showed her how to open a small power box. She watched his hands carefully. When it sparked, she jumped, but he only laughed. "It's okay. Machines are like people. They look scary when they're broken, but inside they just need the right touch." She smiled faintly for the first time. Days passed. Velia learned to hold tools. She learned to twist wires, clean filters, and speak without shaking. She still didn't trust the world outside. But inside this little space, she felt something grow. A small piece of safety. A small piece of herself. One evening, as they sat sharing dried fruit, Leo asked, "Do you remember where you came from?" Velia nodded slowly. "My family sent me away when I was 8. My skin changed color. My eyes glowed one night. They said I was cursed. They took me to the outer city and left me near the trash fires." Leo didn't say anything, he just listened. "I used to cry every night. Then I stopped. Crying didn't help." He looked at her, eyes firm. "You were just a child. No one cared," she whispered. "I care," Leo said. And that's when Velia looked at him, not as a stranger or a rescuer, but as someone real, someone who saw her. In that small, broken home, a broken girl had finally found a place to begin healing. But outside, not everyone was happy. News had spread. The monster girl was still alive, and she wasn't alone anymore. They were watching, and soon, they would come again. Scars beneath her skin, the mirror didn't lie. It never did. Velia sat in front of it, staring at the reflection of a girl who no longer looked like a monster, but still didn't feel like a person. Her silver eyes blinked back at her. The violet shade of her skin had faded slightly with healing, but the bruises left behind were not just on her body. They were deeper. Inside. Leo had found her a second-hand mirror during one of his repair runs. "You should see yourself the way I see you," he had said with a small smile. But what did he see? Not the creature others had run from. Not the cursed thing that drew stones and spit. He saw a survivor, a girl who still stood after everything. Velia gently touched the scar above her eyebrow. It had never healed right. Her fingers brushed another near her collarbone, then one on her leg. Each one had a story. None were kind. Leo came in with a box full of broken wires. "Another client. Small job," he said. He placed it down and noticed her silent gaze at the mirror. He didn't speak. He just sat beside her and waited. After a long silence, Velia finally asked, "Do you ever think about your scars?" Leo nodded. "All the time." "Do they still hurt?" "Yes," he said honestly. "Some more than others." She looked away. "I don't even remember what I looked like before the change, before the sickness." Leo paused. "You look stronger now. I don't know how you looked before, but I know how you look now. And you're not a monster." No one had ever said that to her so simply. Not like a line. Not like pity. Just truth. Velia whispered, "They said I was a curse from the stars, that I would bring death. Do you believe that?" She shook her head. "No, but sometimes it's easier to believe them than to fight them." Leo handed her a small screwdriver. "Then let's fight together." For the next few days they worked side by side. Velia became quicker with her hands. She began laughing when Leo made mistakes. She even fixed an old drone on her own. But the biggest change wasn't in her hands, it was in her heart. One afternoon, while working on a power coil, she said, "When I was little, I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to fly to other worlds and see places where no one cared about skin, or eyes or names." Leo looked up. "You still can," she chuckled. "Who would let me near a ship?" "I would," he said. She stared at him for a moment, unsure if he was joking. He wasn't. But peace never stays for long in a world that hates what it fears. One night, while Velia was sorting wires, a small stone hit the window. Then another. Then a louder thud. Leo moved quickly, pulling her away from the light. He looked outside. 3 shadowy figures ran down the alley. "They've found you," he said quietly. Her body froze. "They won't stop." "No," he agreed. "But neither will we." That night, sleep didn't come easy. Velia kept the mirror under the bed. She didn't want to see her face. Not while fear crept back in. But before the fear could swallow her, she heard Leo's voice from across the room. "You're not alone anymore." She didn't reply, but her hand reached out in the dark, clutching the little cloth he had wrapped around her wound days ago. It smelled like old oil and fire metal. It smelled like safety. Even though the world still saw her as a monster, Velia had found something stronger than fear. She had found someone who stayed, and that made all the difference. The human who didn't fear fear had a voice. Velia knew it well. It whispered in her ears when footsteps echoed outside. It crawled under her skin whenever the wind carried angry voices. But now, something stronger stood beside her. A human who didn't run, didn't flinch, didn't treat her like a monster. Leo was different, and that difference was starting to change her too. She no longer hid her face when she walked with him. Her head still hung low, but her steps were steadier. They made short trips to the market only when needed. Leo would talk to traders and fix things in exchange for food or parts. Velia stayed quiet at first, but soon she began to help. Wiring, old devices, polishing metal, carrying supplies. A few people started to notice her. Not all were kind, but they didn't throw rocks anymore. Not while Leo stood nearby. One shopkeeper, an old alien woman with blue scales, said softly, "She's the cursed one, isn't she?" Leo looked straight at her. "She's the one who fixed your cooling unit." The woman blinked and nodded, without another word. Velia felt something strange that day. Not hate, not fear. Respect. Just a tiny bit, but it was there. She held on to that feeling as if it were a treasure. Back at their little home, Leo gave her a small gift, a tiny chip. It was scratched old, nearly useless. It's broken, she said. He smiled. So were we. She laughed, a sound she had forgotten she could make. Each night she practiced fixing harder things. She learned how circuits flowed and how energy pulsed. Leo showed her how to weld, how to shape scrap into something new. He told her, "Machines don't care who you are, they just need patience." One day a young boy knocked on their door holding a broken translator. "Mr. Leo, my papa said you could fix it." Leo nodded. "Who told you where I live?" The boy pointed to Velya. "She helped me last time, I remember her." Velya's eyes widened. The boy hadn't looked scared. He hadn't called her a monster. Later that evening, Leo said, "You're starting to be seen." "I don't want to be seen," Velya whispered. "If they see me, they'll come again." "They might," Leo said calmly. "But if they do, we won't run." Velya looked at him. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" Leo leaned forward. "Because I see someone stronger than anyone out there. Someone who got up after being beaten and is still standing." Velya shook her head. "They won't stop. They think I'm dangerous." "Good," Leo said with a grin. "Let them fear the truth for once." But his words weren't just bold. They were a warning. That night, as they shared a meal, Velya felt it, eyes watching them from the shadows. Note was slipped under the door the next morning. No name, no words, just a mark. 3 lines across a circle, the mark of the city's underground enforcers. The same ones who had led the crowd weeks ago. They hadn't forgotten her, and now they knew exactly where she was. Leo read the note, then calmly burned it. "We don't give in," he said. But Velya felt her hands tremble. "They'll hurt you because of me." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Let them try." Outside, dark clouds began to gather. But inside, Velya felt something burn inside her chest. It wasn't fear this time. It was something fierce, something rising. They weren't just going to survive anymore. They were going to fight. Together. They came for her. Again. It began with silence, too quiet for a city that never slept. The street outside their shelter, usually alive with voices, machines, and market sounds, had gone still. Velya noticed it first. She stood near the window, her hands frozen mid-repair. The air felt heavy. Her heart started to race. Something was wrong. Leo looked up from his workbench. He felt it too, a tension in the air, like the moment before a storm. Then came the knock. Not soft, not polite. It was loud, heavy, and full of warning. Leo didn't move toward the door. He looked at Velya and whispered, "Stay behind me, no matter what." But Velya already knew. The ones who had called her a monster hadn't disappeared. They had only waited. Waited to strike when they thought she was weak again, when she had something to lose. The door crashed open. 3 figures entered. Their faces were covered with masks made from scrap metal and bone. One carried a shock baton. Another had a coil whip. The third held a capture net. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Velya recognized the symbol on their jackets. 3 lines across a circle. The same group that had once beaten her in the streets. Leo stood in their path, arms wide. "Leave!" One of the attackers laughed. "Move, human, she doesn't belong." "She belongs more than you ever will," Leo replied. Then the baton struck. Leo's body hit the wall hard. Blood dripped from his forehead, but he didn't stay. "Down." He staggered up again, fists clenched. Velya screamed, not out of fear, but rage. They hit him again, this time with the coil. His shirt burned. His body shook. Still, he tried to rise. Velya's hands trembled, but it wasn't from fear anymore. It was something different, something hot, something ancient. Deep inside her, something woke. Her vision blurred. The air around her grew thick, electric. Her silver eyes glowed, not from pain, not from weakness, but from power. The leader turned to her, mocking. "Little monster thinks she's strong now?" Velya raised her hands and the room exploded in light. A blast of energy burst from her chest, knocking the three attackers backward into the walls. Sparks rained down. Metal screamed. The roof cracked from the force. Leo lay on the floor, barely moving. Velia ran to him, her arms glowing softly. "Stay with me," she whispered. He blinked slowly, his voice weak. You did it." She held his hand. "No, we did it." Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had seen the flash. Someone had reported them. But Velia didn't run this time. She looked at the three masked figures groaning on the floor, broken and stunned. For years she had been called cursed, a freak, a danger. But now, for the first time, she believed what Leo had said. She wasn't cursed, she was powerful, and now the whole city would know it. She stood tall as the walls cracked, behind her as the sound of boots rushed in from outside. She didn't hide. She didn't cry. She looked forward, ready. Whatever came next, she would face it. Not as a monster, not as a victim, but as herself. The truth of the monster. The blast had shaken the street. People ran, walls cracked. The ground itself hummed with strange leftover energy. But in the center of it all stood Velia, calm, glowing, her breath heavy, not afraid, not anymore. When the city enforcers arrived, they didn't rush in with weapons drawn. They stopped. They had expected a weak girl. Instead, they saw something they didn't understand. A force standing tall beside a half-conscious human. Leo was bleeding, but alive. Velia stood in front of him like a shield made of light. The officers aimed their weapons but didn't fire. Then came a voice from behind them. "Stand down." An old alien man in a white robe stepped forward. He had the markings of a government scientist, one of the high researchers from the core labs. His eyes were wide as he looked at Velia. But he wasn't scared. He was amazed. "I've waited decades to see this again," he whispered. Velia's glow faded slightly. Her knees shook. She didn't know this man. She didn't trust him. "Who are you?" He bowed gently. "My name is Dr. Merrill. I study rare energy mutations. And you? You're not a monster. You're a miracle." She narrowed her eyes. "They called me cursed." "They were wrong," he said. "You're from the lost line of the Volari. Your blood carries something ancient. Energy born from the stars, it sleeps in most. But in you it awakened." Velia felt her head spin. She looked at Leo, who gave her a weak nod, as if saying, "I told you so." Dr. Merrill continued. "Hundreds of years ago, Volari leaders were feared because of their gifts. Some say they vanished. Others say they were hunted, but now you stand here, proof that their blood still flows." Velia's voice was cold. "So now you care?" The scientist hesitated. "The government will want to speak with you." "I'm not going anywhere," she replied. He looked at Leo, still bleeding, still gripping her hand. "Then let us treat him first," Dr. Merrill said. A medical team moved in. They wrapped Leo's wounds and gave him something to ease the pain. He tried to stand, but Velia kept him down gently. "Rest," she whispered. The enforcers backed away now, unsure. The girl they had once chased was now something else. Not just a survivor. Not just strange. She had become something powerful and dangerous. That night, Dr. Merrill returned with an old book. It was cracked and worn, filled with symbols that looked familiar to Velia. She had seen them in her dreams, on walls when she was small, etched in her memory like a forgotten language. He placed the book in her hands. "It's yours now." She didn't thank him. She didn't smile. She just nodded, taking it with the hands that had once been used to block rocks and fists. Leo slept for hours. Velia stayed beside him, flipping through the pages. She read names that sounded like hers, powers that sounded like her own. It wasn't a curse. It had never been. She had been lied to, thrown away, beaten, feared, and all along, she had been royalty. The truth didn't make her proud. It made her angry. All those people had hated her because they didn't understand her. Now they wanted her back, wanted to study her, use her, maybe even control her. But Velia wasn't theirs to claim. She looked at Leo and whispered, "They may have given me a name, but you gave me worth." She closed the book, her eyes glowing, once again. The truth had been buried for too long, and now the galaxy would hear it. Not from books, not from scientists, from her. She walks beside the human. The city didn't know how to look at her anymore. Days ago, they spat at her, threw stones, called her names. Now, when Velia passed through the streets, silence followed. Some stared, others bowed their heads. A few even whispered prayers, thinking she was some kind of goddess reborn. But Velia didn't want worship. She wanted truth. She walked beside Leo, who now leaned on a metal cane. His wounds were healing slowly, but the fire in his eyes never faded. He walked tall, not because he was strong, but because he had stood when no one else did. He had protected her before the world cared what she was, and that would never be forgotten. They had been offered a new place, some tall building in the center of the city. A private room, safety, comfort, but Velia refused. "We'll stay where we began," she said. "Let them come to us." So they returned to their broken shelter. Only now it wasn't broken. Locals helped fix the roof. Traders donated food. Someone even painted the wall with silver wings, her wings. At first she hated it. "I'm not their hero," she told Leo. "You're not," he agreed. "But you're something they need." The government kept visiting. They offered training, power, money. They begged her to be their symbol, a living banner for peace. But Velia had her own plans. She used her power to repair old machines, rebuild broken shelters, and feed the forgotten. People from the lowest corners, those who had once been like her, started showing up. She trained them, helped them, protected them. They began calling her the Starborn. One evening, a girl with green skin and broken horns knocked on their door. Her voice trembled. "They said you help people like me." Velia smiled and opened the door wide. "I do." Leo stood behind her, arms crossed, watching the street like always. "You're getting popular," he teased. "I'd rather be useful," she replied. The girl stepped inside, eyes wide, and whispered, "Is it true you used to live in the street?" "Yes," Velia said. "And I never forgot how it felt." Each night she sat beside Leo on the roof of their shelter. The city lights glowed below them. The stars above looked closer now, like family she hadn't seen in years. "Do you think we'll ever leave this place?" she asked him once. Leo looked up. "Maybe. But even if we do, it'll be together." She nodded. "Good. Because it wasn't about the power anymore, or the truth of her bloodline. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about the human who reached down when she was in the dirt, who saw her before anyone else did, who didn't fear the glow in her eyes or the scars on her skin. She had been called a monster. Now she was hope. Not because of what flowed in her blood, but because of who walked beside her, and she would never walk alone again.